When the Chicago Bulls traded Lauri Markkanen to the Utah Jazz, nobody knew what was going to happen next. We had no idea that a superstar was going to emerge. This version of Lauri took the league by storm, shooting, dunking, driving, playing absolutely excellent defense, and single-handedly looking like the jewel of the Utah Jazz's rebuild. Then during this offseason, Lauri signs a 4-year max extension, and because of how late he signed it, he's not eligible to be traded during the 24-25 season. He's going to have to be traded next offseason. Well, we knew the Jazz were going to be bad, but people didn't really understand how Lauri Markkanen would be affected, which brings us to the question, what is going on with Lauri Markkanen? To understand what's going on with Lauri, you have to go all the way back to these videos that circulated saying he was Dirk Nowitzki with a 40-inch vertical. And these videos might have been exaggerating, but they're definitely not lying. When you look at the potential of a player with his physical tools and his shooting stroke, and you think about how it fits in the modern NBA, Lauri might be one of the best complementary players we've ever seen. For him to be able to play switchable defense, cover space, and not have a hole in his defensive game guarding 2 through 5, that is a rarity in the modern NBA. As I was researching for this video, I kept going back and forth with this idea. Is Lauri Markkanen the bare minimum of the second best player that can win a championship, or is he the greatest third best player on a championship team ever? If you put Lauri right now on the Los Angeles Lakers next to Anthony Davis and LeBron James, that is a title favorite. If you drop Lauri on the Knicks next to Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, he suddenly becomes even more dangerous. You see, in the NBA, there's this concept of a floor raiser or a ceiling raiser. These are different types of people. Who is a floor raiser? Well, it is a player that is so good that if you make the offense focus on them, you're going to have a competitive team that wins games in the regular season. That's what a floor raiser is. Russell Westbrook, all on an island on the Oklahoma City Thunder, was a floor raiser. The Thunder had winning seasons when Westbrook was in charge of the offense, but then they fluttered out, they faltered in the playoffs. Another great example of a floor raiser is a Chris Paul. Chris Paul teams are always elite in the regular season and then started to struggle in the playoffs. The second type of player is a ceiling raiser. Think Draymond Green. If Draymond Green is your best or second best player in the regular season, you're going to struggle. You're going to be a play-in team like the Warriors are right now. But Draymond Green is the ultimate luxury to drop on a team that already has shooting, already has playmaking, because his IQ and his defensive versatility lifts the ceiling of a team to championship contender. When I'm looking at Lauri, I think there's something that is so rare about him, and that is he isn't much of a floor raiser at all. But when you look at players that are going to be available next year in the offseason, Lauri Markkanen might be the biggest ceiling raiser of players that are available, and I will explain why. Lauri is a legit 7 feet tall. He's strong. He looks skinny, but the dude is built muscular, and he has a shooting stroke that is fast and efficient, and he can get it off in a lot of different ways. What's interesting is he does not dribble the basketball, and I want to repeat this. He does not dribble the basketball. He has a handle. You can see when you look at these clips of him playing for the Finnish national team, or earlier clips younger in his career with the Chicago Bulls, Lauri is able to put the ball on the floor. In fact, they've even experimented with him, especially on the Bulls, with his ability to play the 3. But now on the Utah Jazz, he's strictly playing the 4 or backup 5, and he stopped dribbling. When you look at Lauri possessions, one measurement is 7 dribbles or more in a possession. Less than 0.6% of his possessions go to 7 dribbles. Now, if you're Tyrese Maxey, if you are a SGA, 40% of your possessions go to 7 or more dribbles. When you look at Lauri, he's very rarely making a decision other than catch and shoot, catch and pass, 1 dribble pull up, 1 dribble finish at the rim. Most of his possessions, over 90% of his possessions, are 2 dribbles or less. Why is this important? Because when you're looking at how players are able to get their shots off, when you look at a player like an SGA, he is an ISO player. A Paul George is an ISO player. A Ja Morant is an ISO player or a pick and roll player that requires a ton of pounding the ball and dribbling. This creates usage. Lauri Markkanen is a low usage player that can fit next to other high usage players while lifting the spacing of your team, lifting the scoring threat of your team, and he's able to score at every level. Lauri is effective as a fast break finisher. He's effective driving to the basket or cutting. He's excellent, has great hands for catching alley-oops, but he's the ultimate luxury for catch and shoot, especially in the modern NBA, because at 7 feet tall, as he goes to lift the ball above his head, very few players are going to be able to close the distance and get up high enough to contest his shot. But something's wrong with Lauri, and that's kind of the purpose of this video. What has happened to him? Why have his shooting splits dropped? You can go back to the Mike Conley trade, because when Lauri came to the Utah Jazz, he suddenly unlocked all of this offensive versatility that we didn't know he had. Enough so that the Utah Jazz gave him this max contract. But this season, not only have the Jazz struggled, but Lauri hasn't been able to put it together. Lauri's field goal percentage is only 43%, but it's even worse than that. He is third on his team, on his not good team, in shooting attempts. So how do we understand this? How do you have a player that's on a max contract that's third on his team in shot attempts and his team isn't even good? Earlier, I was saying, is Lauri Markkanen good enough to be a second option on a championship team, or is he just the best third option? And now you're telling me he's actually a third option on a team that can't even make the playoffs, a team that is one of the worst in the NBA. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and John Collins are all being featured by this Jazz offense. The Jazz do not go to Lauri, even though he is their best offensive option by a mile. That's because Danny Ainge, the general manager of the Utah Jazz, is attempting to rehab the value of his vets so he can trade them for more picks. So when we say what happened to Lauri, it might be as simple as looking at the big picture off of the basketball court. Off of the basketball court, his team is in the running for the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. Off of the basketball court, his general manager is trying to trade every bit of competent basketball veteran presence that's on his team. So where is the motivation for the Utah Jazz to nurture Lauri this season? The answer is that they don't have it. He's already locked in on a 4-year deal. He already showed teams over the last 2 years what he can do. So his trade value is as high as it's ever going to be, even though the Jazz can't trade him. And they don't want to put him in a position to play so well that they win games. So the alternative is we have Lauri Markkanen wasting an entire year. So when we ask the question, what happened to Lauri? He's in purgatory. He's on a Utah Jazz team that doesn't want to win. And man, I know he's a professional, but it's got to be hard. It's got to be hard to give it your best. It's got to be hard to go out there and dive for loose balls. It's got to be hard when you know you're the best player in your team. And instead we're giving touches to Colin Sexton or John Collins, guys that at best were role players. These are guys that are never going to be superstars in the NBA. But because the politics of the Utah Jazz, Lauri Markkanen is fading into the distance. But the big question that we have is Lauri a part of the Jazz's future? Or is he going to be the number one trade piece of the offseason? And when I look at this upcoming offseason, this year, you see the Boston Celtics be absolutely dominant, but there are 5 or 6 teams that have a good chance, that think they have a good chance of winning the NBA championship this year. And when you look at the ages of the contending teams, most of them, if not all of them, should be there next year. So I think that this offseason, the offseason of 2025, Lauri Markkanen is the grand prize because he is going to be plug and play. You can drop him into any of these contending teams and he raises the ceiling. Imagine Steph Curry with Lauri Markkanen out there to kick it to when his center of gravity comes out. I love the idea of Lauri playing next to Karl Anthony Towns. I love the idea of Lauri playing next to Anthony Edwards. I love you could keep going down the list. There's almost not a team that he doesn't fit into. So the best is probably yet to come for Lauri, but I do not think it's going to be on the Utah Jazz. And unfortunately, it's not going to be this season. It's very rare that you have a player that can do everything that Lauri Markkanen can, and you're still left going, is that it? But you have to look outside the court and see the fact that the Utah Jazz are not interested in Lauri having another All-NBA season this year. They're interested in the tank. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Tell me what you think happened to Lauri Markkanen. Trash Talk out.